Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Oh yeah, sing along. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Let's rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. Three little birds perched by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melodies pure and true. This is my
So this
message
volume
to you.
It's not good if you're listening to a concert. It's too low. But for this, you know, if we make it louder, people will be shouting, trying to hear each other.
Every little thing's
But when
gonna be
we're going to
alright.
feature the band, like when Ruth does her thing,
Don't worry
I'm going to bring that
about
up
a thing.
to here. Okay? It'll sound much fuller, and then bring it back down when they're done.
Gonna be alright.
Okay?
Woke up this
And that will not affect the feed
smiling at the rising
going back
sun.
here.
Three
Yeah.
little birds
Yeah, this is a separate
on
patron
my
sound.
doorstep, singing sweet songs, melodies pure and true. This is my message to you. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Yeah, 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 yeah. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Oh yeah. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Yeah, yeah, gonna be alright, gonna be alright.
Thank you, World Beat Band. Good morning, Jubilee.
God.
It's a beautiful day to be alive.
In the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Thank you. Indeed, it is. So today we are becoming renovators. Anybody got any renovation projects going on this summer? Few of them, inside, outside, new fences, new gardens, new bathrooms, whatever. How's it going? It's a lot of work. It's a mess, right? It's a mess. It takes time. It always costs more than you think it's going to cost. Renovation. It's something that we do and we don't. I mean, sometimes we like it because we like the results. Yeah? And some of us even like the process. I don't happen to be one of those people, but some people do. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about becoming renovators. And this is specifically about this week that we're in. We are in the week of July 4th, and we live in a nation. We are citizens together of that nation. We also live in this community together. We're citizens of this community together. And just like our homes need renovation, our yards sometimes need renovation, our own psyches often need renovation, our organizations, the groups that we're part of, sometimes need renovation. So we're going to think about that together today and imagine what that might even mean. In our various religious traditions, water is often an important part of our ritual. Water is cleansing, water is refreshing. I poured it today because I'm really hot and I just wanted to feel the cool water on my hands. By the way, yes, the air conditioning is on. Yes, people are aware that it is hot in here. It's very cool downstairs. If you get too hot during the ceremony, I invite you to go downstairs where it's beautifully cold. But water is a good example of a place that we can find cleansing, that we can find healing, that we can find refreshment. So as we think about our work together as renovators, I'd like you to think about a cool mountain spring and how that refreshes and renovates the rivers and the meadows and the valleys where it flows. Today, as we become renovators, I invite us all now to just stand up, if you are able, and sing us in. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
Where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place. You are the place. We are the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up.
Thank you, World Beat Band. Just as Laura said, it is a little warm, and remember, those bulletins can serve an old-fashioned purpose, y'all. We can get the air moving in. You know, for most of human history, for all 99.9%, when I say that, it's an actual literal thing that people smarter than me have looked up. Animism was how people perceive the world. The belief that all things are alive. All things are alive. The rocks, the trees, the wind, the water. So when we talk about renovating, when we talk about physical building materials, metaphorical building materials, the earth, every single thing, it was treated as alive. This, no joke. So when we talk about renovating the nation, renovating the soul of the nation, that's a living thing too. Jubilee can be a living thing too, not just an idea. So as we call in the directions today, what's alive for you? What are you animating? I invite you to breathe deeply as we face the east. Let's just breathe as we call in the winds of the east. Let those winds wash over you. Those waters wash over you. The new life wash over you. Quarter turn to the right. And we face the south. And just breathe. As the winds of the south, the waters of the south wash over you and fill your lungs, caress your skin, animate your soul. Breathe deeply. Quarter turn to the right. We face the west. Breathe. Winds of the west. Waters of the west. Broad skies of the west. However it calls you. However you feel it, it fills you. Feel the life under your feet. The life that has animated all of your ancestors. Breathe deeply. Quarter turn to the right. We face the north. Breathing the winds of the north, the waters of the north, the lessons of the north. However it fills you, however it calls you, draw it near. It draws you near too. It draws you close. Breathe deeply. As we turn and face the center, as we think about independence and interdependence and our dependence on each other, we bless Mother Earth. We seek blessings from all that is above, Father Sky, and the great mystery, and all that animates us, all that we think that we know, and all that is waiting to be known, and all that we'll just never know. So may it be. Oh yeah.
During our next song, we have a basket on the table. It is our tradition in this community that anything we collect during this song goes out from this community to serve the larger community. So let's sing as we feed the hungry.
Buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
So it's time for Jubilee in Action. And Jubilee in Action is the time when we share information about how you can get more involved in Jubilee. And I think the first thing we're going to learn is how we're going to help the butterflies.
Snuck up behind you. Good morning. This is Milkweed Sunday. Yeah, finally. So it's been a tradition with Jubilee to share milkweed plants every year. Anthony Pescone from Costa Farms in Leicester and Miami and other places, he's been a big supporter and provider of all the plants in honor of his late wife. So it's a project that we followed along, and this year they didn't have such a good luck with the milkweeds. The first batch, dead. So this is the second batch. So it's a lot smaller than what you're used to. And I put them in these little compostable bags, but don't put the bags in the soil. They're not that compostable. And there's like 4 plants in there. So if everyone would just take, who wants one, would take a bag and then take it home and keep it watered and plant it pretty quickly. Okay. Sunish, yeah. Maybe not hot broiled, but definite sun. And then Chaz has found these wonderful brochures for us, and we'll be sharing these when we hand out the plants. Really good information about milkweeds and other pollinators and what the caterpillars look like of those other ones that we don't know about, and we accidentally go, ooh, you might be a bad guy, and find out, oops, it was a good one. So take one of these too. Thank you. Oh, right. We'll be right out the door here on one of those tables.
Thank you, Diane. I'm Susie Davis, and I've got a few announcements in relation to community life. If you're curious about Jubilee, if you would like a refresher on who Jubilee is, what we're about, if you're a newbie and would like to learn more about Jubilee, we are offering a program called Pathways to Jubilation. So it's going to be 3 Sundays over the next 3 months. The first one is going to be on Sunday, July 23rd at 6 o'clock. We haven't nailed down the location yet. That's kind of a challenge being in a rental space, but we will nail all that down here in the next week or so. Take a look on the website. We'll have an announcement about it and more details later on in the week. We're also planning Jubilee's birthday, which is it's actually August 8th, I think, but we're going to celebrate it, what? 6th. No, that's my birthday. Yes, I wasn't going to say it, but we are going to have the picnic on August 6th. So you can bring presents. No, I'm kidding. But what we need right now is help planning it. So if you would like to help plan the Jubilee birthday picnic on August 6th, please see me. My email address is Susie, S-U-S-I-E, @jubileecommunity.org. You can get in touch with me that way, or just see me after the service. And then another fun thing that's going to happen next Sunday, Love Bubble. Yeah. Paula's group, Love Bubble, is going to be at the Gray Eagle, 7, is that right?
7 p.m.
Okay.
New CD release, and it's a dance party, too.
Yeah.
And the music is happy, the music is positive, the music is inspiring. Please come.
And dress in 60s garb, if you like. Okay, who's next?
Good morning. Last week at the annual meeting, some of you who were here exchanged a rock with another person. That rock was to remind each of you what compassion or service you were going to do during the week. So this is just a reminder to find that person or call that person and share what that week's been like for you. Thanks.
Good morning. I brought some fresh Jubilant Blend granola. I've got a fresh locker in the parking lot if anybody would like some. Part of the proceeds goes to Jubilee Charities. You're very welcome.
Okay, so just a couple of other things. Wanted to remind everybody that the commitment campaign runs through July 16th, and the commitment campaign isn't just about money. Money is important because we do need to have enough in donations to cover our operating expenses, but it's also about time and talent, and there's so many ways you can get involved in that. And one of them, well, a lot of them actually are on this graphic that's behind Laura right now, and that graphic's going to be moved over to the coffee room, and you can look at that and see if maybe there are some teams or something you might be interested in joining. We just want to make sure everybody knows that we created the Jubilee's Howard Hanger Endowment Fund. $150,000 went into that, and the annual interest from that will go into outreach giving in perpetuity. So no matter what happens to Jubilee, that money keeps going on. Yeah. There's a replay of the annual meeting and slides on the website. Let's see, Nicaraguan coffee will be available next week, and if you want to place an order for it, please get in touch with Carol Greenspan. And finally, the Outreach Committee needs some help. We need some members to the Outreach Committee. The Outreach Committee is the one that makes the decisions about who our money goes to. So if you are interested in serving on the Outreach Committee and helping to make those decisions, please see Gretchen Hinn afterwards. That's it for Jubilee in Action.
It was no longer silence, till it was filled up with birdsong that had been there all along, till it was filled up with birdsong that had been there all along. And I looked into the sunset till it was no longer sunset, till the sky grew darker and it filled on up with stars, till the sky grew darker and it filled on up with stars that were there all along. It was there all along. It was there all along. sounded no different than the song sung by the birds, still singing when they can't be heard. All of the symphonies get blurred to the colors of the world is turning, powered by the bird song that has been there all along. Yes, that really the bird song that has been there all along. Haven't you heard that living bird song that has been here all along? Ruth Elliott, everybody. Thank you to Samara Jade, the author and creator of that amazing song, for showing up today at Jubilee. Thank you. And that's Ruth Elliott singing lead today. Thank you.
Whew. The unseen, unsung, say that last line again.
Underlying unseen song.
The underlying unseen song. The underlying unseen song. That is what we're going for right now, y'all. We're moving into our time of singing and ringing our bells and bowls. There are bowls on the table, so if you'd like to come up and get a bell or a bowl to ring and sing with me, I invite you to do that. This is our time of silence and prayer. It's our time of sharing communion at the back with Jay, or offering a prayer to the prayer wall. It's a prayer easel now, but we still call it our prayer wall. It's still in the West. It's still our Western Wailing Wall back there. So I invite you to take a deep breath. And we go into that silence till it's no longer silence, listening for that underlying unseen song. We sink into the quiet and into the ringing of these bells and bowls, listening with our hearts for the questions God wants us to ask. We sink into the silence, down to the place where we land in gratitude. We let gravity hold us in our seats, root us in this earth. We get low. Where we can be humble and grateful. We sink into the silence, offering whatever is in our hearts for ourselves, for this community, for places and people in the world that need our love. We sink down into the silence. Holy, 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 we open to all that is holy. And now we shift into a time of singing our next song. And after we've sung it, we'll stand and we'll greet each other with the peace. But let's sing in our seats first.
I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my joy mountains. I send my joy over the seas. I send my joy into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my power over the mountains. I send my power over the seas. I send my power. It returns into the sea. I send my peace into the heavens, and it returns to me.
Send your peace over the mountains. Peace.
I guess you know my friend more.
Hi, good to see you again. Peace be with you also. Peace to you.
And to you.
Peace, Melissa. Good morning. Peace to you. Yeah, kind of sweaty hug this morning.
to the heavens, and it returns to me.
All right. Lots of good sweaty hugs this morning. Listen now, or soon. Listen now for these holy words. Our first reading comes from Isabel Wilkerson's book, Cast, The Origins of Our Discontents. And just out of curiosity, how many of you have read Cast? A few of us? A few of us. All right. This is a metaphor she offers for America. Not one of us was here when this house was built. Our immediate ancestors may have had nothing to do with it. But here we are, the current occupants of a property with stress cracks and bowed walls and fissures built into the foundation. We are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. We did not erect the uneven pillars or the joist, but they are ours to deal with now. And any further deterioration is, in fact, on our hands. And from the prophet Isaiah in the 58th chapter, we read, "This is the kind of fast day I'm after, to break the chains of injustice, get rid of exploitation in the workplace, free the oppressed, cancel debts." What I'm interested in seeing you do is this: sharing your food with the hungry, inviting the homeless poor into your homes, putting clothes on the shivering ill-clad, being available to your own families. If you get rid of unfair practices, quit blaming victims, quit gossiping about other people's sins, if you are generous with the hungry and start giving yourselves to the down and out, your lives will begin to glow in the darkness. Your shadowed lives will be bathed in sunlight. I will always show you where to go. I'll give you a full life in the emptiest of places. Firm muscles, strong bones. You'll be like a well-watered garden, a gurgling spring that never runs dry. You'll use the old rubble of past lives to build anew. Rebuild the foundations out of your past. You'll be known as those who can fix anything, restore old ruins, rebuild and renovate, make the community livable again. This is ancient wisdom and holy word. All creation is wisdom and holy word.
All creation sings of wisdom in God. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We know it. So, this week in the United States, we celebrate the signing of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. Now, it was another 7 years before the Treaty of Paris officially granted the independence of the colonies from Britain. And the intervening years were a very messy, messy war. Outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, outplanned. Am I the only Hamilton? Somebody got the Hamilton. Yeah, you get the Hamilton reference in there. Okay, thank you. So our history books, or at least the ones I read some time ago, seem to talk most about what was happening in New York and Boston. You know, we all know about the Boston Tea Party, right? But the Brits, wisely, at least for a while, adopted a Southern strategy in that war, trying to ally with enslaved and indigenous folks here in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Virginia, forming a coalition with British loyalists that still lived in the area. In 1772, 4 years before the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the High Court in London had declared slavery, quote, so odious that it could not exist in common law. 15,000 enslaved people living in England were freed. This decision terrified enslavers in the southern colonies, who were subject to British law. The reason the southern colonies joined the northerners in their rebellion against England was not because of a tax on tea. They didn't really care about the tea tax. The reason the southern colonies joined was to ensure the preservation of slavery. In 1774, John Adams promised Southern leaders to support their right to maintain slavery. As Eleanor Holmes Norton wrote, the price of freedom from England was bondage for African slaves in America. Breathe. There was no moment in the history of the development of this nation when it was not built on the backs and the graves of indigenous and enslaved people. My own relatives were colonizers. John Collins was given land in what's now Virginia by the British Crown in the 1600s. Later relatives of mine became enslavers, Confederate generals, and people who helped administer the Trail of Tears. This is my personal history, and it is our national history. So what do we do? 400 years after colonization began, 250 years after the fight for independence from Britain began, it's tempting, even now, to want to whitewash that history or shed it like something that just no longer has anything to do with us. And this is where I find Isabel Wilkerson's metaphor of an old house so helpful. In her thoroughly researched and highly recommended book, Cast, The Origins of Our Discontents, she shares this idea of America as a house we all live in together, an old house. Now, let's imagine this. You're living in an old house. And when it was built, the foundation wasn't laid properly. There are cracks that were there from the start. Stolen lands, enslaved people, abolished cultures. They're baked into the foundation. And there are compromised joists and bowed walls. Think of broken treaties, Jim Crow lynchings, redlining to keep black folks from getting mortgages. We can look at this whole house we share and say, well, I didn't build that foundation. We can say, I didn't create those stress fractures, or I didn't create that leak where the mold is forming. And all of this may be true. It's also true that we now live together in this house and we share the concerns for its stability. If the floor gives or the roof collapses, it won't matter whose fault it was. We'll all be in trouble together. As Wilkerson says, we are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. We did not erect the uneven pillars or joists, but they are ours to deal with now. So, as we prepare to celebrate the 4th of July, gathering today as a community committed to, as our vision says, an equitable, sustainable world where all life thrives, what are we called to do? Well, turns out Americans were not the first people to deal with injustice. The Israelites had some similar issues about 2,500 years ago. And in Isaiah 58, God speaks to the Hebrew people who were really good at elaborate religious rituals. And he says, or that's funny, wow, I haven't called God a he in a long time. Wow, slip. God says, this is the kind of fast day I'm after. To break the chains of injustice, get rid of exploitation in the workplace, free the oppressed, cancel debts. What I'm interested in seeing you do is share your food with the hungry, invite the homeless poor into your homes, put clothes on the shivering ill-clad, be available to your own families. If you get rid of unfair practices, quit blaming victims, quit gossiping about other people's sins, if you are generous with the hungry and start giving yourselves to the down and out, your lives will begin to glow in the darkness. Basically, if you can face the injustice of the past and repent of the injustice in the present, repent meaning change directions, your lives will glow in the darkness. On June 18th, just 2 weeks ago, thousands of people gathered in Washington, D.C. as part of the Poor People and Low-Income Workers Moral March. Kind of a mouthful. The event and the diverse crowd that it gathered bridged different agendas and platforms with a universal call to reform. We are not an insurrection, Reverend William Barber said, a North Carolina leader of the group, but we are a resurrection. Now, many of you know Dr. Barber. He's spoken in Asheville numerous times, and in 2015, he founded Repairers of the Breach. Repairers of the Breach is a movement that uplifts deep moral and constitutional values to, quote, redeem the heart and soul of our country, end quote. So, you know where the name of that group comes from? Repairers of the Breach? Isaiah, right. So, yes, it comes from this text that we read today in Isaiah. In an older translation than the one I read, the last verses read, your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundation of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in. So the group gathered in D.C. on June 20th, visited elected officials from every state, and they presented a moral budget. So this was a policy document that looks at the entire U.S. federal budget from the perspective of justice, equity, and sustainability. Frankly, it's not as radical a budget as I would prefer, but they're politically savvy and hoping to have something that might actually pass. And here's an example of what's in it. They suggest moving 3 cents of each tax dollar from the current 56 cents that goes to the defense budget to the 14 cents that currently goes to social equity programs. So instead of 56 cents to the military and 14 cents to social programs, it would be 53 cents to the military and 17 cents to social programs. Just that move of 3 cents on each tax dollar would go a very long way toward creating a more just, equitable, and sustainable economy. And the point of this budget and the work of groups like Repairers of the Breach, which are faith-based groups, is to put legs on the ideas of justice that we claim to believe. So to be people of justice and equity means to be actively engaged in social and economic reform. I remember once when I was young, someone saying, you know, if you cut out all of the verses in the Bible that might have something to do with homosexuality, aside, they really don't, you could go through your Bible and not notice. If you cut out all the parts that have to do with economic justice, the Bible would not hold together. It would fall apart. Somebody want to try that sometime? I'd be happy to see the results. Anyway, this is what Isaiah tells Israel. You must become an agent of liberation, generosity, and compassion for the poor and oppressed. And Isaiah says, by doing these things, you will become like a well-watered garden, a spring that never runs dry. A well-watered garden, a spring that never runs dry. Breathe. So on this week of July 4th, this is my dream for America. Ceasing injustice, working toward compassion so that we might glow in the darkness. Abandoning inequitable budgets and creating equitable and sustainable practices. I don't know what it will take for this whole nation to do that. But what I believe about people of faith and communities of faith is that we're called to be a microcosm of what we want to see in the larger world. To become the ones that glow in the darkness. To become the well-watered garden whose springs never fail. 40 years ago, 1983, I was standing on a corner in Fayetteville, North Carolina as part of a peace rally near what was then called Fort Bragg. I was working for the American Friends Service Committee, a social justice organization based in the pacifism and activism of the Society of Friends, also known as Quakers. And as I was standing there, I noticed, I was just keeping a silent vigil, but not everybody was. Not everyone in the crowd was a pacifist or a Quaker. And I just noticed the sense of hatred and anger that was swirling all around me. And I don't mean by counter-protesters. I mean by the peace protesters that I was standing with. Then, as now, I understood that feeling. There was plenty to be outraged about. There always is. I could point to this week in America. But something happened to me that day. I stood holding silent vigil as the anger and the outrage swirled around me, and something in me knew, even though I was only 20 years old and had barely seen the world yet, that spewing the inner outrage we felt was not creating the peace we longed to see. And I knew in that moment that we needed to build a stronger inner peace to carry into our work of justice in the world. I was a Quaker at the time, and I realized that I needed to spend a lot more time sitting in the silence to strengthen those muscles. And guess what? I still do. Just this week, something here at Jubilee just plucked one of those little outrage strings, and I was off to the races. Fortunately, I was on my way to see a friend from my old Quaker college, and she and I went for a walk in the woods together through a place where the Underground Railroad once ran. I stood and I hugged a gigantic tree that has been in those woods since long before the early 1800s, when people escaping enslavement made their way through those woods by those trees at night. And I thought of all that those trees have witnessed. And I remembered how Quakers, though a tiny denomination, became the leading abolitionist in this nation. They weren't always that way. Many Quakers were enslavers. And Yona can tell you about stories about Quakers who tried to strip Native children of their cultures. So it wasn't self-evident that they would become leaders in abolition. We can see it looking back in history, but you know, we love it when they're clearly good guys and bad guys. Life is a little more complicated in reality. A small group of Quakers, sitting week after week in the silence, found their consciences could no longer allow them to sit by and watch God's children being held in bondage. One man, John Woolman, was a merchant in New Jersey. Now, though he never enslaved anyone, He realized that the cotton fabric that he sold in his store was made from slave labor. And he knew that he could no longer sell it. He began to rid his business of every item that he knew was connected to slave labor. As you might imagine, his merchandising business slowed down a great deal. Well, that slowing down afforded him the time to begin to travel throughout the colonies to visit Quakers who were enslavers. And one by one, he talked to his fellow Quakers to convince them that they needed to free their enslaved workers. It was people like Woolman sitting in the silence and finding their hearts convinced of a truth they couldn't ignore, who then spoke directly into the hearts of others, until a movement emerged and Quakers became leaders in the Underground Railroad. They became, in that instance, repairers of the breach, renovators of this old house, a well-watered garden. So my invitation to each of us this holiday week is to slow down, to get quiet, to go deep. I invite us to practice speaking and acting from a place that is down under the waves of outreach that are crashing all around us and within us. I invite us to stand with that quiet rootedness of the trees and to draw on their silent strength. I invite us to sink into the stillness that will allow us to become like that garden, like a deep, deep spring where the waters never fail. And one way that we can move into these places of quiet is through the practice of chant. So I'm going to teach you a little chant now. Chants bring us back into our body and our breath. They provide our minds with a calming mantra, and they allow our emotions to pour into the vibrations of our voice in a transformative way, in a healing way. And this little song that we're going to teach you is based in today's text. So what I'm going to invite is that we're going to start the chant now. And after we've been chanting for a moment, I invite the ushers to begin sending the bowls around for our financial offerings. And we will just continue the chant through that whole time. So, ladies, if I could get your help. You shall be like a garden, like a deep spring where waters never fail. You shall be like a garden, like a deep spring where waters never fail. be so. Go in peace. Let's sing our ways out.
Conditioning will be fixed next week.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real that change.